Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, my name is Ann, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Ann. And it's really good to be in a meeting of Al-Anon. I'd like to welcome all the new people here tonight. They are here for the first convention in Al-Anon. And I would really like to thank Diane for inviting me here. She invited me here a year ago. And I wasn't too sure I was going to be able to make it. But God saw fit that I should be here. I just hope God has joined Al-Anon. Because if he hasn't, we're in trouble. I love Al-Anon women because when I got sober 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago, I'll have 31 come June of this year, by the grace of God. By the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous and people like you. When I got sober, there wasn't very many AA women. In fact, there was only 147 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in Orange County when I got sober. And there was one AA meeting that used to meet at Peake's Funeral Home, and used to say, it was a woman's meeting, to say, if you get in here, you won't get over there. There was another AA meeting that met at night, and these women did not go to mixed meetings. So when I got sober, I had to call a lot of the Al-Anon women. I've never had a problem with the Al-Anon program. In fact, I used to go to Al-Anon, and then my sponsor told me I couldn't go anymore because I really liked your program. I thought, boy, they can work the steps and drink too. I really liked that idea, you know, and I really didn't have this problem. Gloria Froelich, which most of you know, I used to go to that Wednesday night meeting, and when I first got sober, I called my husband. I swore a lot, big swearing, and Gloria came up to me one time and she said, "What is his name?" And I thought, "What's his name? Who are you talking about?" Because he was always that asshole, son of a bitch, everything, you know. So I just, you know, it was just kind of like someone throwing cold water in my face asking me what his name was. I also remember Gloria saying to me one time when we were sitting in the back room, I spent a lot of time at her house, and she sat and told me that the man that I married was very, very sick. And I remember getting very, very crazy and telling her, how dare her say that my husband was sick. The only one in that household was sick was me. I divorced that man 7 years ago because he started to drink when I was about 11 years sober, and I really didn't. I stayed for another 12 years, and it was very, very difficult for me. And it wasn't supposed to be that way for me because, I've been a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was 23 years sober at the time, and this should work for me. I always related with chapter 3. Someday, somehow, I was going to enjoy and control him, and it just didn't work that way. But we're not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about me and how I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 23 years of age when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I looked around Alcoholics Anonymous, and everybody was very old, and I mean they were old. They were 35 and older. They looked like they had one foot in the grave and the other in the banana peel, ready to slide in any second. And I just could not imagine life without drinking. I just could not imagine life without drinking. I didn't have a problem with alcohol. I graduated from Alcoholics Anonymous and left it, and I'm so grateful there is people in both programs that call newcomers, you know. They make the effort to call the newcomers, and I'd like to stand up here and tell you that I was one of those where I'm not. You know, I'm not a person that will call a newcomer in Alcoholics Anonymous, but This gal, Carolyn C., would call me. I left AA, graduated, and she'd call me every couple of weeks, and she'd ask me how I was doing, and I would very quickly tell her I just had a few drinks. And she'd say, I'm not interested in your drinking, Annie. I want to be your friend. And God, I longed for a friend, and I needed a friend, but I didn't want to be her friend, you know. Being her friend meant I'd have to come to these lousy AA meetings, and God only knows I wasn't an alcoholic. So I got off the phone, I got one of those brainstorms that talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I decided what it was a recruiting thing. I recruit somebody for you and get you off my case. And so I called this old friend of mine in Long Beach, and I said, Eileen, you're an alcoholic, and you ought to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And she said, okay. And, I called this gal back up, and I said, I found somebody for you, and I was so happy, you know. And she said, good, I'll come and get both of you, you know. How do you tell somebody with a whole year and a half sobriety you just want to take Eileen and leave me alone, you know? So she came and got both of us and took us to a meeting over at the old Anaheim Club in Anaheim. And after the meeting, there was another gal there, and she came up to me after the meeting, and she said, when are you coming back, Annie? And I said, I'm not an alcoholic. She is. Look at her, you know. And I left that room, and every time I picked up a drink from that time on, I would hear that woman say, when are you coming back? And when I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, I weighed 85 pounds. I was malnutritious, and my liver was shot. And I came in here on a Sunday morning on June 16, 1968. And I was absolutely, my husband sat at the end of the couch, and I had been out on a 4-day drunk, and the people that I was with on that 4-day drunk, they both died of alcoholism a couple of years later. Horrible, horrible deaths. And my little girl, who's 32 years of age now, who's made me a very, very proud grandmother, and who's very, very, very good to her mother, and it's just by chance. It's just a miracle. You know, I've got 3 children. I came here, I had 1, and I got 2 more. And I raised my kids in Alcoholics Anonymous, and my kids have turned out very, very well because of the women in Al-Anon and Alcoholics Anonymous that went before me and taught me and helped me to grow up. And that little girl that Sunday morning was sitting at the end of the couch, and with her legs all black and blue, and her little diaper half off, and her little eyes sunken in her head. And that man sat at the other end of the couch with his head hanging down, wringing his hands, and didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with me, for crying out loud. And I said, I'm going to call that gal that wants to be my friend. He said, you go ahead. He said, you've never completed anything in your life, and you said you won't stay there either. And I said, I got to go see. I can't live in my own skin anymore, and I got to go see what they have to offer. And I went to that meeting on Sunday morning, and I sat in my hands, and I sat very, very close to the door, and I wanted to drink more than anything in my life. I wanted to drink. But I sat there, and I was very, very sick. And a man stood up here like I am tonight, and he told me what I suffered from. And I didn't know how badly I suffered from this. And he told me that I had a 3-fold disease. There was an allergy to the body coupled with an obsession of the mind, and I was very spiritually sick. I just didn't know how spiritually sick I was. I look back now and I realize how spiritually sick I was. And I left that meeting that morning, and I wanted to drink more than anything in my life. But I heard the man say, if you don't take the first drink, you won't get drunk. And he told me to go to another meeting, and I went to another meeting, and I went to a lot of meetings. And I'm so grateful that the people that I came into on a Friday night group that I came into, I went to a lot of meetings. Every night there was a meeting, but this particular group, there was a woman named Bernie Esky. Bernie chaired this convention at one time, and John and John McEnany and Fran and Phil Petty, and those are the people that I came into Alcoholics Anonymous to, and Jerry and Gloria. And these people spend a lot of time with me, and I needed to spend a lot of time with the Lyles and Lorraines. And I'm so grateful to these people, because there were people who talked about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they talked about the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they talked about cleaning house. And I want you to know I had the cleanest house in Westminster until they found out what I was doing, and they said, that's not the kind of house cleaning we have in mind for you. The kind of house cleaning we have in mind for you is an inside job. They talked about getting active in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and picking up ashtrays and doing coffee cups, and I thought I was above all of that. I didn't want to do any of that. I kept telling them I didn't come here to work. I used to tell them that God sent me to teach them patience and tolerance, and a lot of them believed it, you know. They used to take bets in the meetings to see if I was going to stay. I was absolutely, totally crazy. But they kept coming up to me, and they kept telling me to keep coming back. I remember Bernie used to always sit next to me, and I used to elbow her, you know. And one night she turned to me and she said, "You do that one more time," she said, "I'm going to level you right here in front of everybody." You know. And I thought, "Oh my God, Bernie," you know. I didn't mean it, just nervous. I just one of these going like this. And spent a lot of time over at Bernie's at their house on a Saturday night. We always went to their house on Saturday night. We went to Gloria and Jerry's on Friday night, you know. When I was about 4 months sober, I was totally convinced. I used to stay up every night till 2 o'clock in the morning just to see. I knew you had this wonderful secret and you weren't telling us about it. You know, I knew that you had these steps somewhere and you weren't telling us how to do it, you know. And you talked about it all the time, but I just knew that there was a secret and you just were hiding it all. And I remember running into a meeting. I used to have bright red hair. Right now, if I took this hair off, I'd have no hair. And today I got to show you a little scene. This is funny. We're upstairs in the room, and Carol and I, my partner in crime here, and your housing person had called because they kind of got a little mixed up in our room, so they were going to give us a little treat. So I went upstairs to take a little rest, and I took the hair off, and I got no hair. I'm bald, and got my jammies on. I'm lying in bed, and this guy comes to the door. And he said, "He's got something for us." So we let him in, and Carol is in her pajamas and kind of looked, and he said, "Well, where do I put this?" And he said, "Put it in the bottom of the bed there." And she kind of looked at me, and I thought, he probably thinks we're dykes. And I had put my hair on the lampshade, which was probably wondering what the hell that's doing there, you know. Those are kind of freedoms I have today, you know, because of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm not the center of attention. It doesn't really matter, you know. But I used to have bright red hair, and God, I had a temper to go with it, and I was fiery when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of fire. I mean, it just, I don't even want to think of how I was when I got here. And I remember running up to Jerry. I see Jerry every 5 weeks, whether he needs me or not. I go see him, and I just love Jerry Froelich. He's just absolutely an they're an awesome family. If Joey's here tonight, I'm still in love with Joey. I used to go over to the house, and Gloria would say to me, "Don't you be talking to my Joey, you're too old." And I'd say to Joey, he was probably about 14, and I'd say, "Joey, do you want an older woman?" Gloria would say, "You stay away from my Joey, you alcoholic." So I was kind of raised with the family. But I remember Jerry didn't talk to me one time for a long time, but I ran into a meeting one night and I said, "Jerry, where are those steps and how often do I have to run up and down them?" I had visions of 12-stone steps and they were hiding from me, you know, and he kind of looked at me like I really lost it this time. And he said, "Annie," he said, "you go to a lot of meetings." He said, "You know," and he said, "those steps are read at every meeting you go to, honey." And he said, "If you listen to the steps," he said, "and if you try to apply these steps to the best of your ability," he said, "I guarantee you your life will change. I guarantee you your life will change. If you're new here in this program and you apply the steps of Al-Anon in your life, I guarantee you your life will change. It may not change the way you want it to change, but it will change. My life has changed tremendously. I tried those steps to the best of my ability, and my life has changed. When I got here, I had a lot of anger and a lot of hostility. I'm born and I was raised in Ireland, and I came from a very large family, and I was the 8th child out of 10, and I didn't want to be part of that family. I felt very mistreated. I felt very, very much alone. There was never enough of anything. There was never enough food. There was never enough clothes. There was never enough love. It was just a lot of fighting. There was a lot of alcoholism. I didn't know what alcoholism was, except that my dad would go out on a Friday night and come home and he'd beat on my mother and drag her out of bed. And as a young child, I'd be upstairs in that bed with the pillow over my head, praying to this God I was terrified of, saying, "Please let him kill her, or maybe she'll kill him, or maybe I would die." And I got up the next morning, I had all these things going on inside of me, and I never knew how to label them until I came to you. And what they were was guilt, remorse, and I was a very, very bad person for thinking these bad things of my parents. I went to Catholic school, not because we were rich, simply because that's all there was in the part of Ireland I came from. And people used to say to me, "How come you didn't get an education?" And I'd say, "Because I had frustrated Irish nuns, that's why." I didn't know how to read, and I didn't know how to write when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had a lot of shame and a lot of stuff that went behind that. I still don't like to write. I worked with Diane. Diane knows that when I'd have to do names on the book, it was horrible. I do know how to read, and I did graduate from high school because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I drove everybody crazy. But I remember sitting with Mary Reagan one time, and Mary's gone. Mary passed away a year ago. And I remember sitting with Mary one time, and I was telling her about all these horrible things that happened to me growing up as a child. And I had a horrible childhood. And compared to some of you, it was very well. It was okay, you know. And Mary looked at me, and I said all these things the priest did to me, and everybody did to me, and the nuns did to me. And she said, honey, she said, you really had it bad. She said, you really did. She said, you know, I had German nuns, and they were trained by Hitler. So the moral of the story is, there's always somebody in Al-Anon or Alcoholics Anonymous is going to have it just a little bit worse than you, you know. Yeah, I found alcohol when I was 13 years of age, and I remember my first drink. It was absolutely heaven. I remember it was at the Abbey Ballroom. It was at a dance, and this guy, there was these sailors in from Holland, and they brought some cognac, and the guy told me that if I drank this half bottle of cognac, he'd give me a pound note, which was equivalent to $3 in your money. And the deal was I was to drink it, and I wasn't to stop. I was to drink it down. I drank it down, and I didn't stop. And I went in the bathroom, and I got very, very, very sick, and I threw up, and I came back out, and I said, give me my money. I didn't know that night I sold my soul for a drink. And I went up to the bar, and if you know anything about my country, you don't have to be any age in order to order a drink. They will serve it to you. And I ordered me a drink, and I continued to drink. And I can tell you exactly what it did for me. That knot that was in the pit of my gut from the time I was 6 years of age was no longer there. It didn't matter whether my father beat on my mother. It didn't matter whether there was no food in that house. It didn't matter whether I had no education. I'd found the secret to living. And I continued to drink, and I didn't drink every day from that time on, but I drank at every opportunity from that time on. By the time I was 17 years of age, my father made a big decision for me. He decided I should come to California because the streets were paved with gold. I've been here over 38 years, and I'm still looking for those bloody streets paved with gold. What an illusion. But I came to a family in Palos Verdes, and they were a very nice family, and they were a very good family, and they were very good people, educated people, and she had a big bar in her house. I didn't have a bar in our house, and she used to drink 108 proof vodka, and I used to drink 108 proof vodka, and I filled a bottle up with water, and when she drank, she couldn't understand how come she couldn't get a buzz on while I was drinking that good water, you know. And these people wanted me to go to school, and I remember her taking me down. When I drank, I used to break out all over in hives, just big welts all over my body when I'd get drunk, and I'd have to sit in cold bathtubs of water, and I remember I was on drinking. I'd been on my day off, I got drunk, and she wanted me to go to school, and I shook a lot. And I shook a lot because I had a lot of secrets, and I shook a lot because of some of the stuff I drank. And this woman was taking me down Redondo Beach. She wanted me to go to school, and I couldn't tell her I couldn't go into that office. I couldn't tell her that I couldn't be with my peers. I terrified of my peers. And I couldn't tell her that I couldn't fill out those papers. And I remember I was standing outside that door, and I can tell you exactly what I was experiencing. I was going into a catatonic state of mind with absolute sheer fear that somebody was going to find out something about me, and I kind of slid down the door. And that is truly a gift for me here in Alcoholics Anonymous, is the fact that my life's an open book. I don't have to run down alleys anymore. I don't have to hide anymore. If you want to know anything about me, I will tell you today. That's if I feel that you need to know it. Now, if I don't feel you need to know it, you won't get it out of me. That woman looked at me and she said, you don't have to do this. And I didn't have to do it. And I started running around Redondo Beach Pier, and around a lot of people use a lot of hard drugs. This is in the 60s. And I never got involved in drugs. And I'm truly grateful I didn't get involved in drugs, because I really believed I'd still be doing the Thorazine shuffle over Norwalk looking for my medication. It was hard enough to get me off the ceiling from doing Ripple wine, never mind to do some drugs. I left those people, and that woman went down to these bars and told them if they didn't stop serving me that she would have them closed up, and I moved on uptown. And the other thing I like about being sober is that today I had a shower, and my hair is clean, and my makeup's all in the right place, and I got clean clothes on, and it feels good. And this is not always the way it was, and I don't ever want to forget that this is not always the way it was. I used to wear jeans way before they were fashionable, and an old T-shirt, and I drank everything and anything anybody ever gave me, but when I bought, I drank Ripple. And I don't know if any of you had husbands that drank Ripple wine, but it was 37 cents a bottle. It came in a long neck bottle, and I tell you, I never felt cheated when I drank Ripple wine, because, you know, when you're throwing up Ripple, it's only 39 cents instead of $9 whiskey, you know. And I used to walk along Catalina Avenue with this paper sack, and I don't consider myself a wino. I guess I would be a winette. And I gave all the cars a finger. I hated everybody because I didn't want anything to do with the Irish, and I didn't want anything to do with the Americans, because you Americans, all you talked about was education. I didn't have any. And so I got involved with the lesser two evil. I started running around with Mexicans. No offense, Rhonda. And those of you who are Mexican in here, I love Mexicans. I think my friend Angie and I kind of dissected you many, many years ago, and we came up with the only difference between Mexicans and the Irish is that we ate potatoes and they ate beans. They drink hard, love hard, beat the hell out of you on Saturday night, whether you need it or not, you know. So I got involved with a group of Mexicans over there in Torrance, Alameda, and I learned to speak Spanish like I was a native to the tongue, except it was all swear words. I didn't learn anything else but swear words. And this guy was a little weirder than me. He introduced me to the morning drink, and it was a very, very exciting time in my life. It was jumping out of cars and getting beat up. Norm Alpy always says, God rest his soul, used to say, when you drink, don't think. And, you know, and I got to thinking one day that this guy and I had been running around long enough, and I don't even know if it was leap year, but I decided that we ought to get married. And I hitchhiked a ride over from Gardena all the way over to Torrance, Alameda to find him, and I found him, and I proposed to him, and he kind of laughed. He said he wouldn't marry me. I was handed to him on a silver platter. I don't know how you handle rejection. I don't handle it real well. My next thought was, it would kill you, son of a bitch, because one less Mexican in this world, we'll all be better off. I never owned a driver's license until I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I couldn't take that silly little test. And I got him in the car, and I got him on the Harbor Freeway, and I had a bottle between my legs. I was drinking some wine, and I made my big decision to get rid of him. And I turned the wheel of the car, and I took 25 feet of guardrail and went 30 feet in the embankment, and I thought I killed me a Mexican. Now, what I learned about that, folks, if you're going to kill one Mexican, you got to kill the whole family. For some strange reason, they don't take too kindly to you messing with the people, even if they do call you Annie the Irish Mexican. I also learned that when you run with Mexican people, you never yell cop. I yelled cop one time. I was downtown Long Beach, and he kicked the door, and he kicked me, and I yelled uncle. Now, you see, I have no illusions. There's not something wrong with me. And I don't know what normal is. You know, most of the people I run around with in Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon are not normal. They are just not normal. They're a quart low. And I don't know what normal is. And I believe there is such thing as normal out there somewhere. I think we are the norms in here. And I think normal people, when they get into situations like that, they take off and they run. I didn't. I crawl out of the phone booth. I go to the bar, and I said, let's have a drink and we'll discuss this, you know. I learned with that, during that inventory, and that inventory was that there was something missing in me, and if you didn't hit me, you didn't love me. I identified getting hit with love. I also wanted somebody, talks about me in step 8 in the 12 and 12 about antagonizing and bringing out the character defects in other people, and I would antagonize you till you had nowhere else to go but to hit me. And I wanted somebody to hit me hard enough to kill that part of me that kept screwing up. And if you would just kill that part of me, then I would be okay. I have learned here in Alcoholics Anonymous that if you kill that part of me, you kill all of me, because that's the part of me you love here in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I ended up in Arizona with this man, and I ended up being very drunk, very belligerent, and saying lots of things that I shouldn't have said. And I went out to a backseat of a car to pass out. It was a little barrio in a little Mexican community. And I went out there to pass out, and 4 Mexican men came out after me and pulled me out of the backseat of the car because I'd said some things to this guy's wife that I shouldn't have said. And I almost got my wish. And they got me, and they beat the hell out of me is what they did. And one of the guys said, well, in Spanish, you go get this truck and you're going to run over me. And I don't know where I got the sense to this day, but as that truck came, and as that truck came, these 3 guys jumped off of me, and I rolled off of that dirt road. And I got up off of that dirt road as the truck went past me. And my hair is full of gravel, my dress is all torn, I'm somewhere in Arizona, and I don't know how I'm ever going to get back to Los Angeles, and I need a drink. God, I need a drink. And the guy comes along, and he picks me up, and we go to a dirty motel. We get a bottle, and that's how I learned to solve my problems. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, you talked a great deal about dying. I know what it's like to die. I know what it's like to die when you're new in either programs, when you get to that part of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and to say, you have to let go of all your old ideas. My stomach come up to my throat, and I think I can't. Don't they understand? I will literally die if I let go of all my old ideas. The only old idea I could let go is that I could drink. I couldn't let go of all my old ideas when I walked through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. The people in Alcoholics Anonymous in that particular group that I went to had to spoon feed me Alcoholics Anonymous a little at a time, because those women like Nina and Flo D and Lois knew how far down the scale I'd gone, and knew that they would have to spoon feed me just a little at a time, and kept telling me, keep coming back. I ended up in this motel over in Gardena, and it was a horrible, horrible place, and I didn't have the $10 to pay for that room, and I had to sneak in, and I used to cover the keyhole, and you had to go down the halls to take a shower, and I didn't take too many showers at that time in my life. And I would start drinking on a vodka bottle, and I used to scream like a banshee. I wanted somebody to understand me. There is nobody in this world that understands me. I remember getting out of that bed and putting on those old jeans and those old rubber go-aheads and that old T-shirt and heading out on Western Avenue to find somebody. And I'm here tonight to tell you I always found somebody, and it always lasted for a very, very brief time. And it always ended up me getting beat up and thrown out of cars and left to my own self one more time. I want you to know, if you're new here in Al-Anon tonight, that if you'll be understood beyond understanding. I have been understood beyond understanding in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been loved beyond anything I've ever dreamed of in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. It didn't happen for me overnight. It just, you keep showing up and it just happens. There's a magic, there's power. This absolutely tremendous power. I feel the power in this room tonight because we all brought it with us. I ended up in Anaheim Street, and I did 8 months down in Anaheim Street, and it's not a nice street to be on. And by the grace of God, I couldn't have done any more than that. And that's when I met my husband, and he took me off the streets of Anaheim. And he was a very, very good man. I loved him. It was a very difficult relationship because I didn't know how to take. I didn't know when somebody treats you well. And so in turn, I treated him bad. I didn't know that he tried to his best of his ability. I kept running back to the streets, and I kept taking off. And finally, when he told me that he was going to take that little girl and that I had to do something, and when I came to you and I left you again on that Sunday morning, I came back to you, and I've stayed. He never got involved in the AA, and I had 2 more children after I got sober, and I had tremendous sponsorship here in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've got a great, great sponsor. Because of those people in that particular group and working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I found out what causes it. I'd love to tell you that right after I was sober and everything went well, I'd like to share with you that if you knew and you expect to get well right away, it's taking you a long time to get sick. It's going to take you a long time to get well. And I wouldn't give you a nickel for my first 5 years of sobriety. The only time for an hour and a half I would be okay. I would come in and I would sit and I would be okay. But it would absolutely, after that, I'd go home and it was absolutely, totally chaos all the time. I didn't know how to live without chaos. My sponsor would come and take the children out of the house. I was constantly packing his clothes and throwing them out in the front yard. I didn't drive a car. I felt like I was trapped. I will never stand up here in front of you and tell you that I wasn't working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was so frustrated. I carried a big book under my arm, and I was a pacer, and I paced back and forth. And that's when I had to call Al-Anons. They were always the ones I had to call because you were the ones that were at the meetings at nighttime with your husband. And so I'd call Gloria, I'd call Millie Stiles, or I'd call somebody. Talk to Nancy at the Garden Grove Club, and I mean, it was just you were all so important. I'm not trying to give you a plug, but you were really important in my life, and because you all are really strange in your own way. I listened to the speaker last night. I really related with the Alateen speaker today. I feel like I'm a child with in a room full of adults. I really liked little Alan speaker today. She said it. I really never felt I should take an inventory. I didn't feel that. I thought you all should take an inventory, and I didn't think I should have to do any inventory at all. I thought she was great. I ended up they were taking me to Schizophrenics Anonymous when I was new. They didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with me, and so I was abusing my children. I was abusing my husband, and I ended up beating my son. My son's 30 years old, and he's very good to me. He calls and tells me he loves me, and I making amends to this boy. Every time I see him, I tell him I'm sorry. And the last time I said it to him, he said, "You know what, Mom? If you ever win the lotto, I'm going to sue you." He said he has no memory of it all, of what went on at that time. No memory. The one that gives me the most trouble is my youngest daughter, who's 28 years of age. I have been dealing with cancer for the last 4 years, almost 4 years, and she's kind of abandoned me. And it's been real painful because I don't want her to abandon me. She's got all of the predisposition of alcoholism, and I see it, and I don't want to see it, but I see it. She's not drinking, but it's all there. That warped perception that we all get, so warped, and everything is so out of proportion. But I want to back up here. I want to tell you what happened with my son. I was still abusing that oldest girl, and I was still abusing my son, and I beat my son. He was 2.5 years of age. And to see, I'd surrendered everything, but I hadn't surrendered myself to God. I didn't want to surrender to God. I was too afraid of God. I said I had a God because you said you had a God. And I beat him, and this man came to my door, and still his eyes are rolling back up in his head. And the man took him away from me, and he said, "You've got to call somebody." And I called Mary Lee. I didn't drive a car. And Mary Lee came and got me, and I went into that Tuesday night meeting, and everybody was there, and I sat in that meeting, and I said, "Please, somebody help me. Please help me. I don't want to do what I'm doing, and you promised me. There's promises in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. You promised me that I would have peace of mind, and I had no peace of mind. You promised me that I would intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle me, and I couldn't handle nothing. You told me that fear of people and economic insecurities would go. I had done a 4th step. I'd done a 5th step. I'd done all of the stuff you'd asked me to do. And I am worse now than I was when I walked through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And somebody said something to me, and I threw a chair down, and I ran out of the meeting. And thank God I didn't drive a car, because I think I would have ran it into the first brick wall I could have come across. And then a lady came out after me. Her name was Edna. And Edna grabbed a hold of me to see, and I couldn't cry. I could not cry for the life of me. A guy held me one night at a bar, and he hit me, and he slapped me, and he wanted me to cry, and I told him to go ahead and kill me, you son of a bitch, because I ain't ever going to cry. I have done all the crying I ever want to do in my lifetime. And I couldn't cry. And there was a guy in my home group, his name was Walt Stiles, and he was a great big man, and he'd get up, and every time he'd get up at the podium of Alcoholics Anonymous, he would cry. And the hair would stand on the back of my neck, and I would think, why do these people cry? I know today why Walt cried, and I know today why I cry. Because tears are the cleansing of one's soul. And that woman grabbed a hold of me, and I started to cry. And she took me to Orange County Psycho, and I didn't stay at Orange County Psycho, but she took me there. And I didn't keep me, but I ended up seeing a psychologist, and I ended up doing that 4th and 5th step again with him. And I found something. And they were so happy, because when I got sober, those old timers, they'd spend thousands and thousands of dollars on psychiatrists, and they'd say, "Don't you need to go to psychiatrist, you just work these steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, everything's going to be just fine." You know. While they're dragging me off to Schizophrenics Anonymous, right? And so they were all real happy. They said, "Oh, good, don't you keep going there, Annie, you know, you really need help, you keep going." They were very, very encouraging, because someone found it for me in the big book. A gal did the big book on tape for me, because I couldn't read, and she did I think I had the first copy of the big book for 164 pages of the big book on tape. And in there it talks about the psychologists are there to help us. And that's what I really believe, and the big book says that. They're there to help us. Just like the men of the cloth, they've got some things to tell us. And I found something within me. I tapped in. And that man told me I wanted somebody to love me, and I knew there wasn't anybody in this whole world that could ever love me. I had so much hate for myself, I couldn't love myself. And he said, "There's got to be somebody, Annie." He said, "What about those people in AA?" I said, "The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking, and God only knows they know I have a desire to stop drinking." And I had a sponsor who told me on a daily basis that God loved me, and she loved me too, and I never heard it. And I believe we hear when we're ready to hear, and we see when we're ready to see. And I went home that day, and I called Lois, and I called her up, and I said, "Lois," I said, "do you love me?" She said, "Annie, I love you so much." And I got in touch with that power that resides in each and every one of us. And my life has never been the same. I want to tell you about Edna, because Edna gave me life that night as I cried in her arms. And Edna, 4 months later, committed suicide. She had 9 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And to this day, I don't know why Edna committed suicide. But it talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there were some of us who felt that we were reborn. I was reborn that night in Edna's arms. And my life has never been the same. I did end up graduating from high school. I worked at a Catholic school. I stopped hitting my children. My youngest daughter, I never laid a hand on her. And I should have beat the shit out of her because she gives me more trouble than me. She reminds me so much of me, it's not even funny. She has an attitude. I mean, an attitude. My oldest daughter graduated from USC. She's living up in Northern California. She's got my two grandchildren there. My son has got a nice Jewish girl that he's been involved with, and she's very good for him, and he's doing very, very well. He does not into drugs or alcohol. My youngest daughter has got all of the attitudes. Now, she doesn't drink, but I would like to buy her a case and and tell her, go for it. There's a definite program over here, and it'll really help you if you get. She's teaching high school over in Garden Grove. I'd like to bring you up to abreast of where I'm at, and I'll shut up so Dan, your Al-Anon speaker, can talk. I've been people like Rhonda and Carol and Cindy and Diane and my sister Penny. And I met a lady here this weekend who's been going through treatment. My sister died from this disease, my secondary disease, 14 years ago. And I want you to know that it was absolutely devastating. She was married to an alcoholic, and he just spent his time in the pub. And my sister and I went home, and it was very frightening to me. It was very horrid. And she felt so unworthy for to have the nurses come. And it wasn't a pretty sight. And I got this disease in 1995, and I've been dealing with it. And I'm not going to die from it, and I'm going to say that out loud and clear. There's something inside of me that tells me I won't die from this. And don't ask me where it comes from, I just know. Rhonda has spent a lot of time taking me back and forth to the doctor. Cindy has come over and done some meditations with me. And Carol has taken me to back and forth, and my kids. And I have a relationship with God that is absolutely unbelievable. And there's no way I can even describe some of the things that's happened to me inside, not out here, in here. And the relationship is absolutely powerful. I went through chemo, 6 rounds of chemo in 96, and I got reoccurrence in 97. I did 5 more rounds of chemo, and then I was diagnosed again. And I've had very good, I'm a Kaiser patient, and I've had good medical help, except I've had to fight for everything I get. And thank God I'm able to fight for what I want. But July last year, or June last year, Carol was with me, and the doctor didn't even tell me. He didn't even tell me. I ended up praying with him. He didn't even tell me that I had metastasized to my liver as well as my lungs. And he gave me 2 years. And I just looked and walked out of there. And then I went to another doctor, and she just told me to go home and smell the roses. And I thought, why don't you go smell the roses? I got things to do, places to go, and people to see. I just did 21 rounds of chemo again, and I haven't stopped or missed a lick. I had tremendous, I believe in the power of prayer, and there's been a lot of prayer for me, and I feel it and I know it. And I'm doing a new drug today, and I really believe that this is the one that's going to work, and I really believe I'm going to be here for a long time. I want to thank you for my life, and I'd like to close with, I always close with this because I believe it, because it is a family group, and it's Gibran. Don't know if you're any familiar with Gibran. I read a lot of spiritual books, but I like Gibran, and in there it helped me so much with my children when they were little. And it says, there are children come through us, they're not of us. And my children came through me, they're not of me. And I came through the people I came through, I'm not of the people I came through. I'm of the people of Alcoholics Anonymous because you are the people. You're the ones that walked the extra mile with me when nobody else would walk with me. You're the ones that sat and held my hand when nobody else would sit and hold my hand. You're the ones that seen an Annie that nobody else could possibly see. And she walks tall with dignity because she is a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you so much for my life. God bless each and every one of you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.